Welcome to the show. Glad to have you with us today. I'm Sean Stiers, Vince D'Addario here for a second straight day. Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com. We are just chock full of stuff today. I guess I'll just say right off the bat, no show tomorrow because I've got a Notre Dame women's basketball game. Karen Keys coming into town.
Oh, big game, Karen.
Game Karen for the season opener tomorrow against Fairleigh Dickinson at Purcell Pavilion. We'll be on the air at 6:45 right here on Sports Radio WSBT and the Notre Dame Radio Network, including the Odyssey app, AUDACY, as they take on Fairleigh Dickinson. But there's no show tomorrow because I'll be doing that, and Vince is traveling. What exactly are you doing for the rest of this week, Vince?
So rare is it that a high school pseudo administrator gets to travel for work? But this is one of those cases where we are going, all expenses paid, down to Dallas, Texas for a conference about drug trends and things of that nature. So we're going to learn all about all of those things for the next few days. And so heading down tomorrow afternoon and coming back Friday night. So kind of a quick down and back, but should be fun. Should be
back
good.
Just in time for some football this weekend.
That's
and
right.
Everything else. Vince
little nervous about the whole air traffic controller calling in sick and that kind of thing. But hopefully we'll make all of our flights. And
every time you turn around, man, there's something else to be worried about traveling.
I'm purposely not even like some of the people that we're going with. They're like, oh, have you read this? Have you seen? I'm like, I'm not paying any attention. I am going to go with bliss.
Ignorance is bliss. If
yeah,
you're getting on the plane, it doesn't do any good to worry. Like,
we got an email from the conference, and they're like, make sure you got a backup plan. Just like, what kind of backup plan are you supposed to have? Like another flight booked? Like what? You roll with it when you figure it out. Like there's no backup plan.
Yeah, like
come on.
Something happens while you're traveling, it's like you're stranded at the airport at that point. Like that's the backup plan.
My father-in-law was like, just get a car, drive home. I'm like, well, 16 hours. I'll wait. I'll just wait.
When I was trying to get to Miami for the season opener, and you remember I got to Dallas and I was there for, I can't remember how many hours by the time it was all said and done, but I finally got into Fort Myers, Florida at like 2 a.m. or something like that. But while we were delayed in Dallas because of all the storms that had shut down the airport for a while, I was talking with this fairly young guy, probably around Jesse's age, who was a photographer, and he had been living in Seoul, Korea for at least a couple years. And so he had flown 15 hours to get from Seoul to Dallas and was going to Syracuse, New York was his final destination. So he had flown 15 hours and then was stranded in Dallas for like 8 to 10 hours or wherever it was. And he was considering, because all the flights were getting so backed up, he was considering renting a car and driving to Syracuse the rest of the way. I'm like, dude, that's a bit much. Like I would just step out of here and
that's it's long to go to Indiana, but to go all the way to Syracuse, New York. Holy smokes.
That's a haul. That's a haul,
man.
All right, so that's what Vince will be doing. He'll be down in Dallas. Give my regards to Jerry while you're there.
I will.
Stephen A. Smith got some FaceTime with him last night. I don't know if you saw that during the game.
Not.
Interesting.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah, the game was not interesting.
Brutal.
Notre Dame men's basketball, though, on the upside, open up the season, 89-67 win over the Long Island Sharks. Be cool to have your mascot be the Sharks. That seems like
it's funny because it sounds kind of like one of the fake mascots that are like they put on TV. You know what I mean? Are you watching the what is it? The Chad Powers?
I have not. I've been meaning to check that out, but other stuff has been going on, so I haven't had a chance to see that yet.
They're like the fish or something like that. It's a longer word, but they shorten it to fish. It's a certain type of fish or whatever, but they play in the SEC because they play Georgia and Tennessee. And, they're the South Georgia catfish. That's what they are. So, it's very interesting. So you see, Manning's on the sideline and things like that. That's kind of why they did it. But But yeah, it's an interesting show. I wouldn't say it's going to be up for any Academy Awards or Emmys or anything.
Emmys or anything.
Yeah, but
I like Glenn Powell though. I think Glenn Powell's pretty good,
and he does a good job in it because he has to kind of play two characters. You know what I mean? And he does a good job. It is entertaining for what it is supposed to be. It's just supposed to be kind of a stupid, show, and it is, and it's entertaining.
I just heard him talking a little bit about he's got a new. Did you ever see the original Running Man with Arnold?
No, I didn't. But
it's I know that original, a little bit campy, but like Richard Dawson and
oh wow,
like
the ultimate game show host.
Glenn Powell is doing a remake of the Running Man, and it's coming out. Edgar Wright is the guy who directed it, and most everything that I've seen of his is pretty good. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Baby Driver.
I know that movie, but I don't think I've actually sat down.
That wasn't like a huge hit, but I'd recommend it if you had it's fairly fast paced. I'd recommend it. But from what I hear, the Running Man remake is supposed to be pretty good. So looking forward to that in about a week or so.
It looks entertaining. I will give you that. It looks like it's going to have a lot of blood and guts and the whole deal. So if you're into that kind of action, that's the way to go. And you know what? I dig Glenn Powell. I think he does a good job. I mean, he has definitely harnessed his popularity into basically doing whatever comes his way.
It's a way to do it, man. Yeah. And more power to him, because I guess, because the production of Top Gun Maverick took so long between the time they shot it and then when everything shut down, the pandemic, it got delayed something like 2.5 years or something, close to 3 years by the time it was released. He was apparently close to being broke. Like he was by the time Maverick finally came out, and then obviously his fame skyrocketed after that. And like, he's raking it in now. He's doing pretty well for himself. So good for him.
Doing pretty well.
Yeah. By the way, got a message after yesterday's show. We were talking about golf simulators and the idea of a football, like a kicking simulator. Double Bogey Like a Champion sent me a message saying there's a golf simulator near where he lives that offers multiple sports, including kicking a football.
Really?
Yeah. Never seen these personally.
I have not either. And maybe we'll use all the NIL money that Dylan is making to purchase one of those for the basement.
Yeah. All the money he's not making by pursuing the Pat McAfee.
Yes. Yeah. Seriously.
Contest.
Seriously. Talk about a path that, that we should have taken. But
I know it. The college football playoff, of course, the first rankings come out tonight.
Yes.
And it'll be afterward. They're going to release them at 8:00 tonight on ESPN. So everyone, of course, will be dialed in for that. Brian Driscoll and Trevor Trowbridge on the Irish Breakdown YouTube channel will have a lot. Are you going to be there too?
So what they're going to do is they'll have Brian's going to be on CFB Nation for the live, like as it's being put out.
Okay.
And then once they're out, we're going to jump over to Irish Breakdown's YouTube channel, and we will have a reaction show, post show. And that'll be me, Brian, and Trevor.
Okay.
So the three of us will be the post, and then Brian and the CFB Nation crew will be the during. So you can follow along with us the whole way if you really want to.
So somewhere probably around 9:00, you guys will start that.
Yeah, like 8:45, I think, in that neighborhood. So got to have that notification bell clicked. Otherwise, you're not going to know exactly when it's going to start.
There you go. Stymie says his YouTube TV won't show ESPN. Yeah, I'm glad I don't have YouTube TV right now. Let's put it that way, with a dispute with ESPN that they've got. But you don't need it. Just tune into one of those shows that Vince was just talking about.
Exactly. I thought that was the only way you could get the ticket, was on YouTube TV.
Like NFL Sunday Ticket?
Yeah.
YouTube or YouTube TV, but that's separate. Separate from ESPN.
Gotcha.
Because all those games, like, you don't get Monday Night Football, for example, with with the Sunday Ticket. You just get the Sunday 1:00 and 4 and 4:30 games on Fox and CBS. So
yep.
If you would go ahead and pitch the Sports Radio WSBT YouTube side of things. We do this show both on Irish Breakdown and the Sports Radio WSBT YouTube channels. If you would subscribe, we're getting closer to our goal. We're a little over 400 subscribers on the Sports Radio WSBT side. 500 is our goal, so we'd really like to get there. So jump over there, go to YouTube, look for Sports Radio WSBT, hit subscribe. Much appreciated. It'd help us out, and you can watch the show here if you want. And of course, that allows you to participate in the live chat on the show as well. So either way, but appreciate the subscriptions.
Yeah, man. Doesn't cost you a dime.
That's exactly right. Absolutely free.
Click action.
Yep. So it's Shamrock Up, Shamrock Down Day. It's our weekly stock check of Notre Dame football. Been a while since Vince has been here on a Tuesday for some Shamrocks up and down. We didn't have one last week since they were coming out of a bye, so we haven't done one of these in a couple of weeks. Let me just start with this. What did Saturday's sloppy win over Boston College do for Notre Dame's team stock heading into this final month of the regular season, Vince?
You know, they're lucky that a bunch of teams ahead of them lost because I don't think it did them any good. I don't think it's Shamrock Up in this case. I really don't. I mean, again, they did what they had to do. They won the game, which at the end of the day is obviously the most important thing. You know, winning ugly is better than losing pretty, especially when you need the win. So, I mean, that part was good, but it's not Shamrock Up. I mean, again, they got lucky that Vanderbilt and, whoever else was ahead of them fell and lost. And they were just kind of the recipient of that. So I don't think I can go Shamrock Up here.
I can't go up. Whether or not they're down, I think we'll find out tonight when those rankings come out. Did it damage what the committee potentially thinks of them? Now, this is the first one, so there's that. There's going to be a couple teams, I think, that are in different spots than everyone's anticipating, but we don't necessarily know who they are right now. Would Notre Dame be one of them? Because like I've talked about the whole head-to-head with Miami and all that kind of stuff, and we'll get a little bit deeper with that particular aspect in rapid fire in the second hour of the show tonight. I don't think they did win, and as someone brought up in yesterday's show, could have been an NIU, part two, or Stanford, Marshall, whichever one you want to pick. Like, it could have turned into that, and it didn't. They still won the game. So that is the upside. And ultimately, that's all that matters. Now, at the same time, when you are one of those two-loss teams already and you have no margin for error and you're playing a team like Boston College that you're favored by more than 4 touchdowns against, there was definitely a lot different expectations than what we saw. But until the rankings come out and we see what that looks like, I don't think their stock, was really damaged. But again, we'll find out more. TBD, I think, here in just a couple hours when we find out exactly what that narrow win meant. But, good point, because of the fact that you did have some other teams that were in the top 10 losing. That definitely helped Notre Dame no matter what, because you are where you are at this point in the season. You've won 6 in a row, and now it's everything is about positioning and all that kind of good stuff. So I think team stock is still in a good place right now.
I still think that they are in position to make the playoff, right? I think they're at least in the discussion. I mean, we kind of talked about it yesterday, but a little bit of let's say they blew out Boston College. I don't think that would have made them go up any in the standings. I really don't. And we're gonna find out obviously where they fall in the CFP, but I don't think that would have mattered. It matters to us, obviously, and we'll see if it matters to the committee. That's the biggest question mark right now.
Yep, exactly. We're all pretty confident that Notre Dame is going to be the highest ranked of the 2-loss teams. But again, we haven't seen an actual playoff committee ranking yet.
And it's the only one that matters.
Yep.
All those little numbers next to the teams were all the AP poll up until now. Not anymore. That's going away. Now it's just the CFP. That's all that matters.
Because honestly, I think what's going to happen is,
did you know,
the AP poll is going to start to mimic or mirror the college football playoff selection poll a little bit more as we go, when they see, That's the way it's going to end up working.
Yes.
But
And
this
what
first one,
yeah.
there's bound to be some differences.
And I'm very curious to see what those differences are. You know what I mean? Are they
Mhm.
Did somebody have like a crib sheet of the AP poll, that they're kind of looking at as they kind of figure this out? Or are they going to be just completely different? It's going to be very interesting for sure.
Swangdong says Disney, Shamrock Down. Man, I feel for you. If you got that YouTube TV and you're relying on that, and it's like I've had a few different I guess you can't call them cable because I've got Direct TV because I used to have, my Sunday ticket on Direct TV before they switched over to YouTube. But fortunately, you don't have to have straight up YouTube TV. You can have just YouTube and watch the Sunday ticket there. So that's good news. But a lot of ticked off people, and I even saw somebody like on Saturday going, I live right next to Notre Dame. I live just a couple miles from Notre Dame, and I can't watch the game on TV because he was talking about broadcast channels and stuff like that. And it's like, well,
That's not how it works though, man. Like
it's on ESPN. It's not even on a broadcast channel.
And usually if you live in the area, like try being a baseball fan and getting blacked out all the time.
Oh, man. Tell me about it. Can we give the defense a Shamrock Up while also giving Chris Ash a Shamrock Down? How do you what do you think of this idea?
I think that's about as spot on as you can get, to be perfectly honest with you, because it was funny when you and me and Jesse were kind of going back and forth in that chat the other day.
Uh-huh.
I think it was Saturday evening. And, I think the delineation between the actual players that played and the coaches that coached, I think that's legit. I think that Chris Ash fell back into, what he was doing before.
I think ultimately the players outperformed the
Yes.
defense that was being called for them when you kind of, for at least a portion of that game, when it all boils down, I think that you can make that case. They only allowed 281 total yards, which is the second fewest they've allowed in a game this season. The NC State game is the fewest they've allowed. 3.6 yards per play, just 12 yards rushing, not even a half a yard per attempt, 12 tackles for loss, 5 sacks. I mean, there was a lot of destructiveness up front, a lot of great stuff from the linebackers and the defensive line and the secondary. And so I feel like I'm going overall. I'm stock up on the defense, but I'm dinging Chris Ash for feeling like, again, like to me, it felt like, oh, there's a dual threat quarterback out there. So now we've got to play all this zone to make sure he's not going to burn us. Well, again, like you have to have watched film of this guy. He had like 30 some carries and 60 some yards going into that game. Is that someone who's really burned a lot of teams with his legs? No. Like I would keep doing, if I'm him, I would have kept doing what I was doing until Grayson James showed that he could burn you somehow. And it just felt like an overreaction by Chris Ash to switch things up as dramatically and drastically as he did, just because Boston College changed quarterbacks.
I completely agree. Again, you can make the excuse that, Christian Gray wasn't in there, blah, 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 blah. I just think that that's what he's comfortable with. And so he went back to being comfortable. And that's not what Notre Dame's players are comfortable with. Now, I will say this. Remember back when, the defense was getting better and, he came to the podium and he's like, well, the kids are just getting better at what we're asking them to do. Well, the kids got a lot better at what you were asking them to do this time around. And
right.
They kind of saved your tush on,
but it's still just the concept and the design. That's what, left a lot to be desired.
Right.
All things considered.
Yeah.
All right. Shamrock Up, Shamrock Down Day, our weekly stock check of Notre Dame football. We've got more to come. Whose stock rose the most in the Boston College game? Whose stock fell the most? That one might not be hard to figure out, but we'll continue with more Shamrock Up, Shamrock Down when we return. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com continues. It's Shamrock Up, Shamrock Down Day, our weekly stock check of Notre Dame football. Vince, that comment you made about the text chain that you and Jesse and I had Saturday, I was thinking about this. You are, I don't know how many personalities. You're a little bit like Sybil. You definitely, I think, we all have, like our work selves and then our home selves and, like Shoshan, there's like Shoshan, Chauvin, like on the show personally, we all, do these shows. We ratchet our personalities up, 10 to 15% probably, something like that. But, so they're like, there's show Vince. I'm sure there's husband Vince. There's dad Vince. There's the dean of discipline, Vince, at Penn High School. What I want to, and then there is game day Vince, because I think game day Vince is probably some kind of combination of dad Vince and dean of discipline Vince, because you go to another level. I don't want to hear from any of you. Just sit in the back seat and shut up, and I'll be the ones dishing out the opinions from here on out. That's what game day Vince is like to me.
It might be like game day Vince / like text Vince too, because I don't like being bothered.
You are all wasting my time.
Yes,
with
exactly.
Thoughts right now.
Oh man, and it all comes from a place of love.
Of course,
yes,
of course. But Vince is dialed in. He is locked in on game days. I will tell you that. D-Rock Irish, talking about the defense, he says, I think Notre Dame leads the nation with 16 interceptions. They do, somewhat out of nowhere. All of a sudden, they aren't like, so again, like.
I know. It's a weird dichotomy, to be honest with you, because it's like you can be super excited about what this defense is doing. They're flying to the football, all these things. And then it's like, then how do you give up a 3rd and 14 on a slant? Well, it's because you're 14 yards off the receiver. Like it's super frustrating. You know what I mean? Yeah,
exactly. When you let them play, to their strengths, I think that they show what they can do. That you got all these guys out there making plays. 12 interceptions though in the last 4 games, and that is the most in a 4-game stretch for a Notre Dame team since 1977. It has been a while. Like they're making interceptions at a historic rate right now. So again, big up to the Notre Dame defense. Who stock rose the most coming out of the Boston College game? This one was kind of tough for me.
This is a really tough one because, I don't know that this was hard. Offensively, I think that CJ Carr kind of put himself back kind of in the driver's seat of being the quarterback that we thought he would be. You know what I mean? Because he had 2 kind of rough games, I guess. Stock up for the offensive line, I think, because I didn't think so live, but then watching it back again, those guys battled their butts off and they just weren't put in a very good situation a lot of different times. So stock up for them as well.
Yeah, I mean, like just watching it live, pass blocking, they did really well. Run blocking, that's probably where you would knock it a little bit. But BC was, loading up the box and, kind of the way that it was a very vanilla game plan.
That's the problem for me. Yeah. That Mike Denbrock, as much as I love him as an offensive coordinator and what he's done to Notre Dame and all of those things, in this, like putting the blinders on, like this game, it was very vanilla.
Do you think he thought, look, it's Boston College. They've lost 7 in a row. Why do we need to show very much? We can be fairly basic and our guys should just be better than their guys. Do you think that was kind of?
I feel like that was kind of part of it. You know what I mean? And I think that attitude, and I'm not saying they came right out and said that, but I think that attitude infiltrated the players as well, because they kind of came out of the chute not all that enthusiastic and not really ready to play a high level game. You know what I mean? And so I think the coaching staff as a whole kind of had that thought, and like I said, they might not have actually said those words. But I do feel like that was kind of the thought process going into this thing.
I'm giving a Shamrock Up to Luke Talich. I asked Marcus
Ooh,
Freeman
nice.
about him yesterday. I'll let you hear what Marcus Freeman had to say about Talich, and then we'll talk about him a little bit.
He's doing his job, and when you do your job and the ball comes your way, now you're in a position to make a play. I mean, you've seen him make some big-time interceptions, game-winning interceptions. The past couple weeks, his fourth down stop this past week was huge for our team when we're at in that moment. And it's a guy that embraces his role, works at his role, and when he's in there in the game, he's getting his job done and playing well. So, he's doing a great job for us.
Only played 14 snaps against Boston College, Vince Talich, but felt like a lot more to me because he was around, felt like every rep he was on the field, he was somewhere around the ball. And Freeman talked about that fourth down play. And it's like, oh, here comes another layup first down. And all of a sudden, here's Talich just, boom, swatting it out of there. Big play. And he's making the most of the time that he's getting on the field.
Well, I think he's the definition of know your job, do your job. You know what I mean? He's not sitting there pouting because he's not starting. He's in a rotation. You know what I mean? And when he gets on the field, he's impactful. And you can tell that he studies and he knows kind of what the offense is going to do. You know, all of those different things. And he puts himself in position to make plays. I love it.
We all talked to Marcus Freeman yesterday. Many of us.
Great.
Saying different things,
Mitch.
Actually. Yeah. I don't know. You got any other stock ups that you want to hit? I think Drake Bowen is one.
Drake Bowen. He doesn't get a lot of love.
I listened to your post game show talking, specific to the defense. You and Brian and Trevor, and I guess Trevor wasn't there. Sean Davis was there. You guys brought up some guy during the show talking about stat sheet tackles. What the hell is a stat sheet tackle? They go on the stat sheet because you made the tackle. Like he's not out there just, accumulating, I don't get this. Like, how are you going to knock it? There were 14 solo tackles by Drake Bowen, by the way. So I've got to put him in a stock up for his game against BC.
That doesn't just happen. You know what I mean? Like it's not even like they're playing Navy, for example.
Right.
Where you can rack up a bunch of solo tackles and, specifically the middle linebacker is going to have a bunch of tackles.
That would be kind of a stat sheet tackle.
Yeah, exactly. There's a reason Jesse Stiers like playing against the triple option.
That's right.
Rack up those numbers, baby.
That's right, baby. That's right, baby. He'll talk about it later this week.
I'm sure he will. So, but it wasn't a game like that. This was a game where you were running against a traditional pro-style offense, and he had 14 solo tackles. And he did well in pass coverage and dropping into space and playing man-to-man and then coming downhill and playing really good football. It was quite the performance. And yeah, I know you're gonna put that up there.
I am Tenzin. I am the son of Ang, says Goolsby thinks very lowly of him. I gotta wonder if that's a little jealousy, maybe.
Good call. Good call.
Goolsby was a really good linebacker. Now, I'm not taking anything away from Goolsby, but the way Drake Bowen moves versus the way Mike Goolsby moves, like those are two different kind of cats.
And also, just because you were a good player doesn't mean you know good play when you see it.
And Goolsby made it to the NFL again.
No, for sure.
I'm not taking
anything. Sold Drake Bowen, by the way.
Exactly.
He'll also make it to the NFL. Yeah.
And I think this is not a knock on Goolsby because he did play it and played at a high level, but I think that ultimately that Bowen's career will be longer than what Mike's was.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Yes.
Interesting.
But that's where a lot of people listen to people with a microphone, right? And when there's somebody that's just dogging somebody else constantly, you're gonna eventually adopt that opinion.
It feels like people being a little bit hypercritical, and like what you brought up, the thing with, Kingston Viliamu Asa obviously plays very well when he's on the field as well. The problem is Bowen and KVA both play middle linebacker, but most of what KVA is doing, you're seeing him do stuff off the edge, a lot more of that kind of stuff. Again, letting him play to his strengths. The biggest issue, I think, is people see Viliamu Asa playing well, and it's like, well, he should be out there instead of Drake Bowen, when the reality is, I think most of us would agree that they need to be playing side by side more than subbing for each other.
It doesn't have to be a debate of who's better than the other one. You have two linebacker spots. Notre Dame doesn't run a 4-1. They run a 4-2. So you can have both of them out there. And I think that is eventually what we're going to get to, is you're going to have Drake at middle and you're going to have Kingston at will, and they're going to be a dominant 1-2 punch at linebacker. You have two really, really good linebackers on your team. It doesn't have to be either or. It can be both. And that's the glory of it.
Andy Forever 72 says it sounds like a knock on Goolsby. Look, if you're going to compare one to the other, and you're going to say one is better than the other, then I guess it has to sound like a knock. But I mean, that's what sports is, right? And you're also talking about two guys who played a generation apart. The kind of middle linebacker that Goolsby could play 20 years ago is different than the way middle linebacker is played right now, both in college and in the NFL. There's a big difference. And Goolsby is, I think, when I think of Goolsby, I think more like not Clay Matthews Jr., but like Clay Matthews Sr., like that kind of really old school throwback, Butkus, like those kind of linebackers. That's what I think of when I think of Goolsby. Drake Bowen is just twitchier and is able to, to cover more ground. And he also diagnoses really quickly. And I think Goolsby diagnosed really quickly as well. But, just like laterally, like the kind of linebackers they are, Bowen is just a completely different rebuilt model compared to what Mike was 20 years ago.
Yeah, different game, obviously, and it was played differently back then. But Drake Bowen's a heck of a linebacker.
Yeah. And Goolsby was a heck of a linebacker back then. And again,
no doubt.
I'm not like, ND Forever says Goolsby leather helmet era. You're absolutely right, Ant VR. Goolsby could play. I'm not taking anything away from the fact that he could play. I'm just saying, it was like Goolsby's, Brandon Hoyt's, and even Manti Te'o. And kind of like the cutoff was like Manti was the last of that kind of like older school kind of linebacker. The game changed so much, where you had a lot more, look at a guy like Drew Tranquil as an example. Like Drew Tranquil, high school safety, tried to play safety at Notre Dame. He was just not good enough to cover the kind of ground that you have to cover, at the FBS level to play safety. So what'd they do? They bulked him up a little bit, moved him up closer to the line of scrimmage, let him play rover, and it's turned into a really good NFL career, because that's what more NFL linebackers are right now. Like they probably started off, a lot of them probably started off, with a safety frame, and grew into a linebacker frame as they moved up levels in college and the NFL.
Yep. Agreed.
That's something Jesse found out really quickly when he was playing. Like, guys moved a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Than, just a typical off-ball box linebacker. So, whose stock fell the most? Is this the most obvious question that we have?
The kicking game?
Yeah.
Like, insert kicker's name here. And that includes Marty Biaggi, to be honest with you. So, I think all of the above would be whose stock fell the most, for sure.
Yeah. Again, like Marcus Tenman, Goolsby has forgotten more about linebacker play than you clowns will ever know. Okay, so we'll just, because we didn't play, we'll just let the radio be silent and never talk about anybody. I just freaking told you Goolsby was a good linebacker, but he was a good linebacker 20 years ago, and there's a difference in the way the game is played.
And he can also have a poor opinion. Like, that's allowed too. So because he played, he's not allowed to have a poor opinion about the way things happen. About a player evaluation and things like that. I mean, everybody has been wrong. Everybody has been wrong about a player evaluation. I'm not picking on anybody in particular. I'm saying everybody has been wrong. It's okay. It's, can you admit that you were wrong? That's the question.
Right. Exactly. Okay, so kickers. There's just no way around it. We spent a lot of time yesterday hearing Marcus Freeman's comments on the kickers. Like, you miss 2 extra points, you miss a field goal. There's just no way around the fact that their stock is down right now. The question is, how do they get it back up?
Well, like I said yesterday, they need to pick a kicker and stick with them the rest of the season. Just let them know, like, hey, man, you're our guy. You're going to be the guy. Just because you miss a kick doesn't mean you're going to get yanked for somebody else. Like, whoever it is just needs to have that behind him. And they need to do that. And from a mental standpoint, from a, hey, let's get this operation working on all cylinders, because right now it's not. And it's not just the kickers. It's the holder, it's the snapper, it's all three. So they need to get that working. And when you have different kickers taking reps with the same operate, it doesn't work. You need to have one operation, 3 guys getting after it. So that's what they need to do to fix it. Will it be perfect? Most likely not. But your solution is on the roster right now. There's nothing else you can do. And Marcus Freeman made that very clear yesterday in his press conference.
Exactly.
They got to roll with what they've got. Offseason is a different conversation. They're in season. They got to figure it out. They have 3 nationally ranked kickers on their roster. Figure it out. Pick a guy and roll with them.
I mean, Burnett getting healthy would probably go a long way, but at the same time, when all 3 of them miss relatively short kicks, because
I know,
like when you look at like a 35-yard kick, for example, okay, so you got the end zone is 10 yards. Mm-hmm. So if it's at the 15, if the line of scrimmage is the 15, that's 25. And then an extra 7 for where 32. The holder is going to set up is 32. So like you're inside the 30-yard line, right? And then like the same deal with a kick against USC as well. I think the line of scrimmage was around the 13-yard line or something like that for the field goal that was missed. These are very short. Like, you're inside the 30-yard line. Those have to be automatic at this level. Like, there's just no way around that.
Anything inside the 40 should be just about as automatic, like inside 40-yard kick. I'm not saying the line of scrimmage at the 40. I'm saying the ball is placed on the 30-yard line where they're kicking it from. So a 40-yard field goal and in should be – you should be – as a kicker, you should be swinging your leg like you're kicking a 40-yarder every time. Like, that should be automatic. No matter where it is, I'm kicking a 40-yarder. I'm kicking a 40-yarder. It should be the same thing every time. And anything inside of that is exactly that. And beyond, okay, now you're maybe changing some things up just slightly, things like that. But anything inside 40, you got to get after it.
And, of course, Brandon Aubrey missed for the first time last night because he was in a situation
that was
where
like a 60-yard field goal.
It was 68.
68.
Let me finish the sentence. He was he was lining up it was the end of the first half. Would have tied the new NFL record that was just set the day before if he had hit it. But that was going to be my point. Like, that's one of the few misses because like he was at such a distance where he finally overswung just a little bit. But like, a couple of weeks ago, just before the half, they ran I guess maybe it's been a month ago. I think it might've been the Giants game where they ran the ball to set up a field goal of like 60 plus yards for him. And it's just boom, right down the middle. But that's the thing with him is his mechanics are so true. It doesn't matter what distance he's at. His leg swing is the same almost all the time, regardless of what the distance is. And that's obviously what they've got to get figured out is just the mechanics and, the repetitiveness. Yeah. Being able to repeat that motion all the time. That's like, feels like maybe that's part of what they're overthinking right now when you watch them out there.
It is very similar to a starting pitcher, repeatable motion. You just want to be able to repeat the motion and just get after it. That's what you've got to do. That's what you got to do.
See, people bring up this whole Drake Bowen thing, and now all of a sudden it's turned into some big controversy. So
you're a jerk. That's all.
Away we go. All right. Well, we've got a little bit more Shamrock Up, Shamrock Down to finish off this hour when we come back right after this. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Winding down the first hour of the show, Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com, Shamrock Up, Shamrock Down Day with Vince D'Addario, Sean Stiers. I did want to give Josh Burnham an up because we got kind of stuck on the linebacker conversation there.
Good call.
Vince, I thought he had a really good game. Should have been credited, obviously, with another sack.
My goodness.
For loss. The phantom face mask really cost him. I got to give Jadarian Price a Shamrock Down for this game. The last time I gave Price a down, it was after his last fumble, and people were like, he's still a great running back. How can you say he's stuck?
Yes.
Look, he's a great running back, but you're not helping the team if you're fumbling deep in the red zone. That's just what it is.
Completely agree. You can't do that. That's a fatal flaw, and that is something that he's going to have to get cleaned up real quick. Otherwise, not that running backs are going to be drafted super high in the first place, but his stock is going to fall. I've seen plenty of people say that Love and Price are the top two running backs potentially to be in the draft, in April. And I don't necessarily disagree with that, but he's going to have to fix that fumbling problem.
Yes.
Because it is borderline a problem at this point. It's 3 times.
I think it is a problem. 3 times in one season, that's a lot, especially when they're all in the red zone.
Nope.
So,
everybody's going to be swiping at that ball now, man. You got to cover that thing up with 2 hands.
Exactly. So Swan Dong wants to hear our opinions on the 2 kickers sitting there joking and laughing on the sideline after the missed extra points.
Thank you for bringing that up. I can't stand how people at home sitting on their couch with, the Cheeto dust on their fingers get upset with how people act on the sideline.
Right.
Who cares?
They're supposed to sit there and just sulk.
Do you want them crying?
Because you want an extra point.
You want to see some tears? What are you looking for?
Right.
Oh, it bothers me, man.
Because it wasn't right afterwards either. It was something, it had been some time. Yeah, it was afterwards, but it had been a good period of time had passed. I mean, do you think that nobody on the sideline is ever telling a joke or trying to stay loose? And I mean, honestly, that's what you want. If it's a quarterback who throws an interception,
short memory.
Someone needs to lighten the mood with him a little bit, just like with the kickers. You can't just sit there and be pissed off the whole time. That's not going to do anything for anybody.
You're going to press, and you're going to make even more mistakes. You're supposed to have a short memory.
They're supposed to be locked in. So again, Tommy, no one on a sideline is ever supposed to laugh or joke then, because they're all just supposed to be locked in during the game. Is that what you're saying? Are you really serious about that?
Come on. Give me a break. Look, my kid's kicking coach says to him all the time, it's the next kick. Whether you made the last one or not, doesn't matter. It's the next one. It's the next one. That's the way, that's your mentality. And when you're a quarterback, it's the same thing when you throw an interception. The next throw. It's come on, man.
Oh, we're the silly ones. I want losers to feel rotten about failure. We're silly by it. Well, apparently he's not here to say
that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Okay.
This is nuts, man.
If the players acted like a lot of the fans react when they're watching the game on TV, all emotional and crazy, they wouldn't be able to perform on the field. Oh my goodness.
We've entered all the overanalyzation of the looks on Marcus Freeman's face during a game. And why isn't he madder? Why isn't he showing more emotion? We're reading into, to all these different looks on their faces and everything else. Look, it's just they had a couple bad kicks. They had a player can have a bad play, just like Christian Gray. And someone said, I want him to act like Christian Gray. It's whatever it takes to get you ready for the next one. If Christian Gray wants to sit there and stew on it, and that makes him better, he can sit there and stew on it.
Correct.
But if a kicker is in his head mentally, which obviously a lot of this is, it's not going to do him any good, again, to sit there and sulk, and that's all he's thinking about. Someone told a joke on the sideline, and the camera happened to pick them up laughing. It's not that big a deal. It's not even doesn't even amount to half a deal or a quarter of a deal. It's not a deal. It's guys are laughing on the sideline all the time.
Right. I'm sorry that a 19-year-old kid wanted to laugh with his teammate. Like, what's the problem here? Come on. I'm sorry. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. If you're losing, is nobody allowed to smile on the sideline? You know, I just it's impressive, I guess, is what I would say, that people are overreacting to the way somebody looks on the sideline. And it's not like they had a camera on them at all times. They caught them laughing at something.
Right. I don't even know what to say.
I know. Because we're not going to convince anybody.
Right.
Because
you've got your mind made up. It's just like
correct.
The people who think that after you lose a game, you're not supposed to go out and have dinner afterwards. You're not supposed to go out and do anything fun. You're just theoretically supposed to go to your room and start studying film and the playbook to get ready for the next game right away. As if all these guys 24/7, all they do is football or baseball or basketball or whatever their sport is. They're never supposed to have any kind of outside life. Like,
right.
Come on.
And it has nothing to do with how committed they are to their job. Give me a break.
We'll take a break for the top of the hour. Rapid Fire is coming up in hour number 2. We've got college football playoff talk and more on the way. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. It's hour 2 of Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat. Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
I'm always ready for rapid fire, baby. Let's go. The chat got me fired up. I got to bring it back in. I got to bring it back in.
I was stewing the whole break trying to figure out like what do we talk about? Let's just move on and go to something different. That was an interesting first hour of the show.
It really was. It was a little it was different. That's a good way to put it.
Go listen to the podcast. You can go back and watch it. I don't know. Marcus Freeman was asked yesterday about the idea of using the college football playoff rankings as a motivator for his team, one way or the other. Here is what Marcus Freeman said about that.
I'm going to use Saturday's opportunity to motivate us. Like that's what matters. It really, like me using that is I believe wasted time. I do. And if I sit in my office and try to come up with some way to utilize our ranking to use it as motivation, I'm wasting time that I need to be really using to prepare for this upcoming game on Saturday. And so that's the motivation, is this opportunity we have on Saturday. And that's all we need to spend time thinking about. And the minute we start thinking about college football playoff ranking, you're just wasting time. It's a great reminder. It might happen naturally. It's a great reminder when you start doing that, get back to the moment, get back to work, because that's what's important, not where we're at right now in the rankings.
Vince, you better wipe that smile off your face. I want you locked in and focused, ready to answer this question. I don't know what you're doing. Keep your eyes on the prize here. Do you buy or sell using the rankings as motivation? What do you think?
I sell using the rankings as motivation, Sean, and I think his answer was perfect at the beginning, was that I'm using Saturday's game as motivation for my team. Look, you can't control the rankings. You can't control what these fools are doing in a room, just putting together rank. You can't control that. You have to control what you can control, and it's all cliche. You got to shut out the outside noise, all of these different things. That's what you have to do. You got to focus on the game that's coming up. Navy, you got to focus on Navy, especially defensively, and what they're going to do to you offensively. So there's no time to worry about what the rankings are. Now, are all the players probably going to sit and watch tonight at 8 o'clock? Yeah, probably. But then when they go to the facility and they're at practice, you're locked in on what you need to do on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, if your focus is the rankings, obviously that matters, but it doesn't matter nearly as much today as it will a month from now, when the regular season is over. That's when it's important. And the only way that plays to your advantage is if you take care, as Marcus Freeman said, you take care of this week and this week's opponent. That's what the focus has to be. If you're thinking about the rankings, you're thinking about the wrong thing. And there's probably a kicking metaphor that we could, work in there as well, but that's just what it is. So I sell using the rankings as a motivator, because I think it was phrased like, whether you're on one side of the line or the other, you're in or you're out or whatever. It's like, look, you take care of business, the rankings will take care of itself, but you have to take care of business on the field on Saturday, which also means you have to take care of business every day and every play of the week leading up to Saturday. That's what the focus has got to be. And you have to take your focus and shift it from over here to what's right in front of you. And that's your practice every day and the game on game day. And
there's going to be no mention of playoff in the building. There's not going to be a mention of playoff when they're at practice. Like, that's not a thing right now. It's November 4th. The playoffs aren't till December. Like, that's the ranking that matters. And if you take care of business on Saturday, you'll be fine. You'll be what you are.
College football playoff rankings will be out in a little bit here tonight. Scale of 1 to 10. What's your confidence Notre Dame is going to be ranked in the top 10 when the first rankings come out?
Scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to put it at like a 6. So like a little better than 50-50 that they're ranked in the top 10. And by the top 10, I think they're going to be like 10, maybe 9, in that neighborhood. I would be shocked if they were any higher than that. And that's fine. You're in like that. That's fine. I think that if they can like I said, where Notre Dame is in comparison to other 2-loss teams and all of those things. Those are all going to be important here in the first set of rankings. So I'm like a 6. I think they've got a shot to be in that 9 or 10 range, because if they're lower than 10, they're not going to be in the 12-team playoff for, for this, or for this ranking, you know what I mean? And again, that can all change next week, right? 2 of the teams that are above them are going to play each other, and, all of these different things. So I'm like a 6.
I'm surprised mine is slightly more confident than yours. I'm at a 7, only slightly, though. Again, like we've talked about it, I am really curious to see what the committee does with the 2-loss teams, and Notre Dame being one of them, and the fact that you do have a head-to-head with Miami, and now they're both sitting there with 2 losses, and Miami has a head-to-head, and then Oklahoma is in that 2-loss mix. Texas is in that 2-loss mix, and it all comes down to who did you beat, who did you lose to,
Sure.
all those different kind of things. And what works against Notre Dame, obviously, the most that we've all talked about since day one is the fact that they lost to, at least at the time, what were the 2 best teams on their schedule. Texas A&M is still unbeaten, but Miami is I don't know if it's a complete spiral just yet.
Close.
But they're starting in that direction. How much does that head-to-head mean versus how much do current results mean? Like the fact that you are 2 months removed from that season opener at Miami. What exactly does that mean? Because we've seen before where head-to-head losses don't necessarily mean anything to the committee.
Yeah.
I found the voting process, by the way, that the committee uses. So here are the steps. There are 6 steps that they use. First, each committee member creates a list of 30 teams they believe to be the best in the country, no particular order. Teams listed by 3 or more members remain under consideration. So each person makes their list of 30, and then they figure out, okay, which teams have shown up multiple times, and that kind of, it's like starts the paring down process. At the end of any round, other teams can be added to the group of teams under consideration by a vote of 3 or more members. That's interesting. Step 2, each member lists their top 6 teams in no particular order. The 6 teams that get the most votes comprise the pool for the first ranking step. This is known as the listing step, it says. In the ranking step, each member will rank those 6 teams, 1 through 6, 1 being the best. The best team in each member's ranking gets 1 point, second best gets 2 points, and so on. So now it becomes like a point receiving process. The 2 teams that were not ranked will be held over for the next ranking step. Step 4, each member lists the 6 best remaining teams in no particular order. And again, they kind of repeat the process. The 4 teams receiving the most votes will be added to the 2 teams held over. Step 5, steps 3 and 4 repeated for 4 rounds until 16 teams have been ranked. So they kind of all keep making their lists of, okay, here's the top 6. And then once they figure out who actually the top 6 are, then it's like, okay, now here's who I think are the next 6. And they, do this votes and points and all this kind of stuff. Much more complicated, honestly, than what I thought it would be, Vince.
Not only is it much more complicated than you thought it would be, it's more complicated than it needs to be.
Yeah.
Like, that is ridiculous. It's like they're trying to justify why it takes them so long to come up with a top 25. Like, how about you just everybody ranks their top 25 and then you put it together? And, if you're the number 1 team, you get 1 point, number 2 team is 2 points, etc. And then if there's like 10 people on the committee, you put those top 25s together, all of a sudden you got yourself a top 25.
Mm-hmm.
It is not that complicated.
But I think it also takes away from the chance that 1 or 2 people could potentially influence, like, well, I really think that Ole Miss
regional bias
should be number 4. Yeah. And it's like, so then you get into these arguments. So, they're kind of trying to keep it so you're all filling out your own ballots, and it's just a very lengthy, very tedious process.
Man,
it sounds like. But I think that all those steps maybe, kind of hopefully lead to a truer ranking than just one that's completely subjective, which I think a lot of people think the committee is.
True. This puts more numbers to it. It makes it more analytical, I guess, when it's all said and done. But
Right.
holy smokes, is there somebody in there that has like these rules memorized that keeps these guys on track? Like, okay, now we're going to do this. Now we're going to do this. Like,
I know.
Oh my gosh. Like, are they quizzed on what the rules are in order to be on the committee? Because that would be one heck of a quiz.
Exactly. Man. Well, Andy Staples from On3 says he cannot include Notre Dame in his top 12 right now because of the season opening loss to Miami, who, of course, like the Irish, have 2 losses right now. So what he's saying is the head-to-head should matter. So here's my question, I guess. If you're Notre Dame right now, do you want the Hurricanes to keep winning so that it seems like a more quality win? Or because you've each got 2 losses right now, do you just want them to lose again so they have more losses than you?
It's tough because right now, at least in the AP poll, Miami dropped to 18th and Notre Dame and them have the same amount of losses. So at this point, I think that they might as well just lose so they're not even in the conversation anymore. I think that the hay is in the barn, so to speak, with what Notre Dame's resume looks like. They still have an undefeated team that beat them. And then they got Miami that beat them and somebody put it in the chat, by a 1 in a million catch, in the end zone is really what won them the game.
Yeah.
Okay. They lost that game. And maybe that loss doesn't look maybe as good as it did a couple of weeks ago. But Notre Dame will also, if they end up at 10-2, will have 10 straight wins on their, resume as well. And that will, whether people like it or not, that is going to mean something moving forward.
I think that Notre Dame is ultimately better off if Miami just loses one more game.
Yeah.
And that's really all you need. If Notre Dame loses another, either way, either team, Miami or Notre Dame, is out of the playoff picture once 100%. They lose one more game. So if you're Notre Dame and you have 2 losses, you're always going to have 2 losses if you keep winning. So I think you just want Miami to take another loss and be behind you so you don't have to be compared directly to them.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like to Andy Staples' rationale that he can't include Notre Dame because you've got the head-to-head, and the head-to-head is supposed to mean something. It was just a few years ago, Michigan State beat Michigan on the field, and then like 2 or 3 weeks later, when the college football playoff rankings came out, might have even been the same, I can't remember how far down the line it was, but the committee ranked Michigan ahead of Michigan State after Michigan State had beaten them. And then Michigan, they were like, well, our eye test says Michigan is just the better team, even though Michigan State beat them in a head-to-head. So I just feel, should head-to-head mean something in a perfect world? Yeah, but there are plenty of instances where these committees have shown us that it's not nearly as important as basically people in the media who are putting together their own subjective lists seem to think it is. Especially, look at, again, this is going way back, but look at 1993. Notre Dame beat Florida State on the field, but then happened to slip up and lose the next week. But, at the end of the season, both teams had 1 loss, Notre Dame and Florida State, but Florida State won the national championship. Notre Dame didn't even get a share of the national championship. Right. So again, it's not like head-to-head is end-all be-all and that's all that matters. There are a lot of other things that have to be taken into account.
And I think that's why you want Miami to lose so that it doesn't come down to head-to-head. If you've got Miami with 2 losses and Notre Dame with 2 losses and everything else is somewhat equal, maybe the defining thing is going to be the head-to-head. And you don't want to put yourself in that situation. So at this point, you want Miami to lose. And they've got some potential losable games. They got NC State. They got Pitt. And Pitt's on the road. So, there's some games there where they could potentially lose.
And again, will we be sitting here in a couple of hours once these rankings have come out?
Yeah.
Will we be sitting here going, Notre Dame should be higher than they are? Why is Miami, will that be something as Notre Dame people that we're talking about? Because Notre Dame feels like the better team now in spite of ugly win over Boston College, but they're also winning. How much is that? How much importance is the committee going to place on that, considering they both have the same record, and Miami's got a head-to-head against them. That's like, to me, the biggest, like, when we're talking about our confidence of Notre Dame being in the top 10, I think that's potentially what keeps them out if they're not in the top 10.
The committee can say all they want, it's about what's on paper, it's about the strength of schedule, it's about the strength of record, all these different things. It still matters when you lose.
Yeah.
It still does, man. Like, they lost their first 2 games of the season. Yep, that stinks for sure. But if you're going to be compared to a team that's lost 2 games in November, I just think that matters. I really do. And they'll tell you that it doesn't, but I think at the end of the day, it does matter. I think it does. Otherwise, Miami wouldn't have dropped as far as they did.
Right. And now, Miami, their first loss is to Louisville, and Louisville's in the thick of things in the ACC race right now, but they also just lost to SMU, and SMU, while still a good team, not nearly as good as the one that went to the playoffs last year. So, like when you're talking about who'd you lose to, who'd you beat, and all that different kind of stuff, Miami, again, even though the records are the same and they have a head-to-head, they've also lost to a worse team than what Notre Dame has lost to, at least for right now.
For right now, yeah.
Miami's only got 2 losses.
Right.
We'll take a break. When we come back, more rapid fire. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. We continue rapid fire on Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com. I'm Sean Stiers with Vince D'Addario. A lot of Notre Dame football and other football talk going on. We'll talk some Notre Dame basketball here in a minute as well. Vince, which ACC team do you think will be the highest ranked when these first rankings come out?
So I've got Virginia as the highest ranked ACC team at the moment because they're undefeated in the ACC, and I think that matters, even though they lost to NC State in a really weird non-conference game. Mm-hmm. So I'll say Virginia. I think they'll be the highest ranked. I don't think that they'll be in the top 12, but they'll be vaulted in because they're the top ranked ACC team.
Right. The highest ranked ACC team would, for this, when they put together the bracket, when the show is all said and done, would have to be included because the conference champions obviously get in. DJ says Virginia's a fraud. I don't completely disagree with that. They've played worse the last few games. Like my eye test says, I think Louisville is the better team right now. But this goes to what we were just talking about. Louisville's only losses to Virginia. So
there you go.
And even though Virginia has a loss to NC State, that was a non-conference game back at the beginning of the season. Again, that was, I think it was week 2 of the season.
Yep.
And they're on a little bit of a roll, including a win over Louisville. Louisville got that win over Miami, and they're looking really good right now. They've each got one loss.
Mm-hmm.
As of right now, Virginia is undefeated in conference play, and they've got a head-to-head win over Louisville that was like maybe a month ago, something like that,
Yep.
So it wasn't that long ago. So I think it's going to be Virginia as well, even though, again, right now, I feel like Louisville's the better team, but this will also be another test of just how the committee sees all this stuff.
Well, and then the other option, the other one-loss team is Georgia Tech, and they just lost. And so
exactly
again, the recency bias of when you lose is going to matter. That's the only reason Virginia is going to be ahead of Georgia Tech. Virginia lost back in week 2. Georgia Tech lost this past week.
Yeah,
so Virginia's going to be above them. That's how I think it's going to go.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if Georgia Tech would have taken care of business, they would be the highest ranked of the teams. But they lost to NC State. Some irony there, again, that NC State is the one loss on the resumes of both Georgia Tech and Virginia, and Notre Dame smoked NC State. Again, I think that can be a potential feather as you look at some of these head-to-heads and who have you played and who have they played and all that different kind of stuff. I think that can ultimately, indirectly help Notre Dame out. So,
and just Mitch in the chat says the Virginia AD is on the committee and he'll go, they'll go with Virginia and all that. He's not in the room when they discuss Virginia.
But again,
supposedly what
I just went through the whole voting process. It eliminates a lot of these things that we're talking about.
That's true.
Right? Where they have to keep re-ranking, 1 through 6 and then 6 through 12 or whatever it is. They have these continual rounds of votings and rankings that eliminate some of this, politicking, you're talking about.
Right.
So Virginia and Louisville will both be on just about everybody's initial list of the 30 teams, that's at the beginning of the process for the play, for this selection committee. But I think that a lot of, those kind of things, again, the politics of it, I think get weeded out. When you look at that process that I was just talking about before. And I'll go ahead and I'll put this in the YouTube chat so people can look at it if they want. So you can see how detailed each round of the college football playoff selection committee's process is. I just put it up there in the YouTube chat. So, you can look at it if you want, but there's a lot to it, beyond just I think it's this team. I think it's this team. There's a lot of voting and different rounds of the voting that I think eliminate some of that stuff. So, Vince, considering Notre Dame's current kicking issues, Marcus Freeman was asked this week if he would ever consider just going for 2 rather than kicking extra points. And here is his answer to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a strategic thing where you want to go for 2 at times based on what the situation in the game is. But if there's a confidence that you can't make an extra point, you can either be insane and keep missing extra points, or you can go for two, right? And so I'll tell you right now, in this moment, the confidence that we're going to be able to make an extra point. But if we don't, then I'll have to have some decisions to make about going for two. And those are things that we'll have to decide.
All right, Vince. So what would you do?
Well, I think I put this in. I thought I put this in our group chat during the game. The second time they scored a touchdown, Notre Dame went for two, because they missed the first extra point. I was like, that should tell you all that you need to know about Marcus Freeman's confidence in the kicking game, because it's not like they were chasing points. They were up. You know what I mean? Like they did not need to go for two in that moment. It was, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? We don't get the 2-point conversion, and it's the same thing as missing a PAT, so we might as well go for two. Like the confidence level, and that speaks volumes to your team too, by the way, when a coach does that. So I just want to throw that part out there. What would I do in this?
I didn't feel like it was like lack of confidence in that situation.
Oh, I did.
For me, I felt like it was, well, you were leading 6-0, and now you get a touchdown and it's 12-0. So you try to get that point back that you lost, and you go for two to try to make it 14-0. Like, I thought it was just math to me rather than what he did or didn't think about the kickers.
Oh, I feel like it was
I get what you're saying about chasing points, but like there's like the analytics, and like all that stuff. It's like, what is it telling them that they're supposed to do in those?
Sure.
I just felt it was like, okay, we're just trying to get that point back second time around. Like this whole mentality to me is a little bit more like in high school, where the quality of your kickers and the consistency of your kickers is a lot more shaky, and like now, remember, like when you and I used to broadcast Mishawaka football a few years back. Now, this has nothing to do with the quality of the kickers, because they actually had some pretty good kickers when we were there. But what Keith Kinder would do a lot of times, if they scored that first touchdown of the game, they would go for two right away, just to put pressure on the other team. Like, okay, it's not just 7-0 now, it's 8-0. But if they didn't get it, well, they were just going to go for two the next time, most likely, that after they scored a touchdown. But that was kind of like a mentality, like, we got the touchdown, we got the first touchdown, now we're going for two, we're going to put some pressure on you, because now it's 8-0 instead of just 7-0.
Yeah, I mean, you and I'd look at it completely differently, and that's how the world works, is we all get our own opinions, as we discussed in the first hour. But it felt to me, because to me, as a football coach, the difference between 14 and 13 is negligible. And as a football coach who was watching that game, I never felt like Boston College was ever going to threaten. They weren't putting up two scores on us. So if we got 13 or we have 14, it's not going to make a darn bit of difference. And obviously it ended up being that way. But like, it was, sorry, fellas, I don't trust you. We're going to be going for two now. Like, that's what it felt like to me. But what I would do.
See, but now the other side of it, not to cut you off before you're getting ready to answer. I think the group text you're referring to must have been, because I know you have multiple group texts going on game days when you're Game Day Vince out there. But I had texted after, I think it was after Love's short touchdown run when they kicked the extra point. And that when I can't remember what the whole situation, like, I felt like maybe you would go for two in that situation. I can't remember exactly what the score would have made it, but what you said was, no, you just kick the extra point to make sure it's a 2-possession game at that point, whatever the score was. Like, do you remember what I'm referring to when we were
vaguely? Yeah.
Right. So I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah. I know.
Vince, you were about to say what you would do. Go ahead with what you would do.
I would start the game. First touchdown, we're kicking. And, that's going to show my reinvigorated faith in the kicking game. Okay. is what that would show. Now, if they go out there and they miss a PAT, guess what? We're going to go for two the rest of the game. Like, that's what we're going to do. And if they make it, then we're going to continue to kick it. I will show faith in my guys that, the first time around, but faith is fleeting if you miss. You know what I mean? Now, I will not parade a bunch of different kickers out there either. You know what I mean? Definitely not going to do that. If you miss, fine, we're not going to go for PATs anymore. Now, that also doesn't mean, you know, that we wouldn't kick a field goal if the situation called for it and things like that, because I would. But at the same time, it's like, guys, if we can't hit PATs, and we're just going to go for 2, like that's what we're going to do. So
yeah.
That's
Here's what it was. I found the box score.
Okay, good.
It was actually after Love's last touchdown, because after the 3-yard touchdown, it was 18-10. So with a 2-point conversion, obviously a touchdown and a 2-point conversion, that's a 1-possession game. So Love scores the 94-yard touchdown before the extra point. It's 24-10. But Diomede had just missed the extra point after Love's short touchdown run. And so that's what I said was, well, you know, after the long touchdown run, I think I would have gone for 2 just because of the fact that you had, you know, missed those extra points. But Freeman opted to kick it. Schmidt makes the kick, and you pointed out, and strategically, this is absolutely right. No, you go ahead and kick it because now it's a 3-possession game at 25-10 instead of just a 2-possession game. So potentially, anyway, obviously,
yeah.
Pending, you know, you're going to go for 2 and all that kind of stuff multiple times. But at the end of the day, I think that you are probably sending the wrong message to your kickers. Like, if you ever want your kickers to dig out of the spiral and all you're doing is going for 2, I think that that's probably the wrong message for your kickers. So,
I don't disagree with
unless
that.
you miss a couple or even one. Again, like if I'm in a situation where I'm Marcus Freeman and I miss 1 extra point again, I might just go for 2 the rest of the game.
Right. That's what I'm saying. And
you get 1 chance, but if you don't, then
yeah, I got faith in you. Like, well, let's go. But
I'm not going to tell him you've got 1 chance.
No, I would not tell him that either.
Right.
I would say,
tell him I've got all the faith in the world, or not even talk to him, or whatever. You know, get the sports psychologist, or, you know, a friend over there cracking jokes with him and, you know, letting him smile and whatever.
All of that. Yes.
Even though they're not supposed to smile, apparently.
Yeah,
on
can't
the
smile.
anymore.
Smiling is not allowed. Smiling is not allowed, no matter what.
Right.
But yeah, I would kick it right away. And then, you know, if the game got to a point like what was last year's game, they were up like 50-14 or whatever the ridiculous score was. Like, if you're up by that much, okay, we're going to go back to kicking it again. You know what I mean? Like that's what I would do. Once the situation is no longer in doubt, we're going to start kicking again. You know what I mean? But I would also send a message like, okay, we're going to kick. And if you miss, we're going to go for 2. Like, we have to put points on the board, guys. Like, that's what we're here for.
Right. Because just with the kicking game itself, because of the fact that you missed 2 extra points, that forced you to go for 2 on the other one, and you missed that one. So that's 3 points, 3 easy points you've left on the field right there, plus a short field goal that you should have made. That's 6 points in itself right there. Just by 3, you know, what should have been 3 layup kicks and really a layup field goal. Just with those alone, it should have been 31-10 right there.
Right.
And then, you know, we talked about the Price fumble and everything else earlier. That's even more points that you leave on the field. But just the simple little things, that's 6 points that you're leaving out there. And no, it shouldn't have mattered against Boston College, and ultimately it didn't matter against Boston College. And theoretically, when you look at the schedule the rest of the way, it shouldn't matter. But it could matter. It could easily come back to bite you. And what you have now is 4 games to get this figured out. And if you win all 4 of those games, you're going to start playing some teams where I guarantee you it's going to matter. Like, just look at how important that kick by Jeter was at the end of the semifinals against Penn State last year.
You're going to, if you want to make a run, you're going to have to make some kicks in the playoffs. Like that's the bottom line. So that's why they have to get this figured out.
How about the flip side of this? Because like most coaches these days, Freeman is aggressive going for it on 4th and short rather than kicking field goals. And this is it pretty much, you know, especially NFL and college, it's across the board. Unless you're a really old school coach, or, you know, like a guy like Sam Pittman who's about to get fired, you're not kicking field goals on 4th and short when you're in the red zone. So should Freeman flip that and kick the chip shot field goals rather than going for it on 4th down to try to build up some kind of confidence in his kickers.
I would not be making decisions based on that.
Like
I would be,
propping up the
yeah,
mindset of your guys.
that's what I will do in practice, and that's what I will do, with extra
Right.
points and things like that. I can't make decisions like that for the game. Now, if it's a chip shot field goal, and it's 3rd and 8 or something like that, or 4th and 8, something like that, yeah, we're going to kick it. You know what I mean? But it's going to be dictated by the game. I can't be like, okay, how can I give this guy some more confidence? You know what I mean? Like, that's just not a good way to coach. I got to still coach the way I would normally coach.
Because these decisions are data driven anyway. That's the reason everyone's going for it on 4th down these days instead of kicking. Like if it's 4th and 2 or 3, most of the time, especially if you're in plus territory, you're going to go for it. And the reason you do it is because the analytics, say like the difference between, kicking and not kicking is negligible, but obviously the opportunity to score 7 instead of just 3, that's why you go for 2. And I think that the kickers have to understand that at this point, that it's not a slight on them that they're not kicking field goals in those situations.
Agree.
It's that the upside is we're going for touchdowns. We're trying to win the game.
Correct. Yeah. And, they understand the game of football. You know what I mean? And they understand the way their coach calls a game too. And so I don't think that they would believe that it's a slight towards them. In fact, if you're kicking to try and raise their confidence, I think it'd be like, Coach, why are we doing this? Like that's how I would feel, and like, why are we changing the way we do things, Coach? Let's just do it like we always do.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that starts playing into the whole mindset as well. Now, I can tell you, I kind of wish Brian Schottenheimer might have decided to kick a couple field goals last night. Not that it would have changed things ultimately, as bad as the offense was, but they had a couple situations where it's like, man, a couple more points would have at least given them a shot at the end.
Well, and as somebody in the chat said, and multiple people in the chat said, the offense needs some work on their red zone offense as well.
And that's a great point. Like that, when that is an issue, I think you are balancing that. But when your kicking game has been as inconsistent as it has been, I think if you're Marcus Freeman, that's why you keep saying we're still going to go for it on 4th and 2, 4th and 3, because why are we just basically flipping a coin that this thing is going to go in if we're trying to kick a 30-yard field goal when you've missed a couple really short ones the last 2 games?
Yeah, absolutely correct.
We'll take our last break and then back to finish up Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat and Rapid Fire with IrishBreakdown.com after this. Just a few minutes left of the show. Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com. Sean Steyers, Vince D'Addario. Vince, we did Shamrock Up, Shamrock Down in the first hour for Notre Dame football, or weekly Notre Dame football stock check. How about Notre Dame men's basketball last night? Whose stock rose the most in their 89-67 season opening win over Long Island?
That is a great question, and I think that my answer is going to be the transfer from Northern Arizona, Carson Tout. And I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, and I apologize for that. But he had 19 rebounds last night. When was the last time Notre Dame had a big man that pulled down 19 rebounds? I don't know the answer to that, but I feel like it's been a long time. So the guys who normally scored, and, we got a lot of familiar names and things of that nature, but he was a name that obviously I'm not super familiar with as a transfer student. And
new guy. Big impact.
I was impressed with 19 boards, man.
For sure. I'm going to go with Cole Serta, though. Career high for him. 22 points. He hit 6 3-pointers, 6 out of 9. Dead eye, and had a little offense rolling, had that inside game rolling like you were talking about with Tout. But I'm going Serta for last night.
Okay.
For starting the season off with a career high. Good start for Micah Shrewsbury and their team. They're back in action Friday night at home, and that is going to be the Bend night. They're going to wear those the Bend uniforms this Friday. Vince can't wait.
Yeah, I'll be missing that one. Not because of that, because I won't be in town. But look, it's a gimmick, and I'm down for gimmicks and different uniforms, and it's cool.
Women are wearing their Bend uniforms on Sunday at home against Chicago State. So
Chicago State. All right.
Coleman wants to know when Tom Noy is going to be back on the program. I would imagine once we wind down, like the football regular season, and we have a little bit more time to talk more expandedly about basketball. Tom has always been more than generous and willing to come on the show and talk a little Notre Dame men's hoops with us.
Yeah, I think we got to let a little bit of time go so he can kind of assess the program since there's so many new faces.
Yeah, get some time out there. In the time we have left, did you watch much of the World Series? Just ended over the weekend.
0 minutes of the world. I'm that cranky guy that once my team was out, I was done with it.
That's funny because you and Jesse far and away watched way more baseball than me during the regular season. Now, granted, you were both watching mostly Cubs.
Sure.
I didn't watch a ton during the regular season. I won't say I was locked in with the World Series, but I thought it was a great series. The last couple of games were awesome, just with the plays that were made and the last couple innings and Game 7 going, extra innings and all that kind of stuff. I wanted to pull for the Blue Jays just because they were the underdog. I just found myself wanting the Dodgers just because I like more Dodgers. I like Mookie Betts and, like Yamamoto rolling it out there and going consecutive days and all that kind of stuff. But it was a good series. And I watched much 2 years ago that Rangers Diamondbacks World Series. I don't think I watched any of that, but I watched a lot more. All right. That's going to have to do it for tonight. Again, no show tomorrow because I'll be doing Notre Dame women's basketball. Vince is traveling. We'll be back Thursday. Thanks for being here. Great spirit in the chat tonight. Talk to you later. Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com.